Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain, and this week I wanted to create a video more tailored to dialogue and conversation. Don't worry, part 2 of Wild Force is still happening, it's just not quite where I want it yet, script-wise. This topic is something I've wanted to discuss for a while, and naturally, I'll be using Power Rangers as a lens from which to approach most of this, but I'll also bring up other shows as well, just to make my points and thoughts more clear. So, with all that said, let's dive into what I'm calling the just a kid's show fallacy. Any show or movie or piece of media in general has the potential to be great, in theory. And I'd like to believe that for the most part, the people who create these pieces of entertainment do their damnedest to ensure that what they're making is worthwhile. Sometimes that's just not the case, but I'd like to think most of the time it is. Writing and producing a show with a younger audience in mind can be extremely difficult. There's a ton of things you simply can't do when you're trying to get that family-friendly TVY7 tag. If you behead someone on screen, for example, even if it's the most poetic and symbolic decapitation ever filmed, sorry, you ain't gonna appear on Nickelodeon. I bring up the challenges of creating for a younger demographic for this reason. This is a point in favor of those who think the flaws of certain shows are attributed to these limitations, and in many cases, that's simply true. But where the argument falls flat is in the idea that quality and demographic focus are or even should be tied, when in point of fact, a lot of times they are mutually exclusive. One could say a show like Bucket and Skinner's Epic Adventures is bad because it's made for kids, but I would counter and argue that it's bad because it's stupid regardless of who it's made for. But why can I say that? Because I have a firm foundation for comparison, i.e. other Nick shows, all of which have some type of focus on a younger demographic. Hey Arnold is one of the best examples, a show of superb quality. It has a uniquely urban jazz score defining it, it doesn't talk down to its audience writing wise, and the situations they delve into don't sugarcoat things. Case in point, their Christmas special, a time where most shows are dialing it back mind you, revolved around a man being reunited with his daughter who he had to give up during a war. Nickelodeon makes shows for kids, but there's a world of difference between making a show tailored to more juvenile sensibilities versus making a show with kids in mind. When one focuses on the latter, that's when you get shows like Avatar, or Gravity Falls for Disney Channel. Now let's shift this discussion to Power Rangers. Several people over the months have criticized my more negative-leaning reviews simply for being negative. They don't counter my points or challenge my reasoning. They simply think that, because it's Power Rangers, it's somehow protected under the imaginary force field of children's entertainment. There's a multitude of issues with this argument, starting first with the hypocrisy of it. When I praise what Rangers does right, as most of my videos do, it's never seen as just a kid's show then. When I point out why Casey and Sky's season-spanning growth was so vital, such tags cease to exist. And yet, when that same metric is used to critique lesser characters, all of a sudden, a handful of people come out of the woodwork spouting things like, well, we shouldn't expect quality from a kid's show, so my points somehow don't count anymore? Yeah, kind of silly. Here's the deal, simple and clear. I don't compare Power Rangers to The Wire, or to Game of Thrones, or even other superhero shows. I compare Rangers to Rangers. I may reference other shows in my analysis, as I actually have done with Game of Thrones several times, but never as a means of direct comparison. So when I say things like Troy's an emotionless doorknob, then all of you have the inherent understanding that my frame of reference is this guy, and this guy, and this girl, not these guys. Power Rangers as a franchise has never tried to hide from their motivations to sell toys and to turn a profit. It's been Saban's entire MO for years. And, in their production meetings, we know that they need to discuss when to introduce a new Zord or vehicle for the spring toy line. This is simply how the business side of this franchise works. But, the quality and value of Rangers doesn't come exclusively from the toys. It comes from characters and storytelling. When Magna Defender showed up with the Toro Zord, was that done to sell toys? Well, yes, it was. There's no debate about that. Was his arc filmed with kids in mind? Well, more debatable given what happens, but this show was still marketed towards a younger demographic. But did either of those limitations stop his story from being one of the most poignant ones in the entire franchise? That would be a no. Here's the truth about any show marketed to anyone. Every creator, executive producer, showrunner, or writer has the choice to either use their situation as a crutch or as an opportunity. The over-criticized Bruce Kalish saw SPD as an opportunity to construct a narrative about being able to better understand the world the Rangers were policing. Eddie Gazillion saw RPM as an opportunity to both innovate and understand what being a Ranger means, and to brilliantly tie most of what we see inside symbolism, metaphors, and parallels. Conversely, Megaforce was basic, bare bones, lazy, and insulting. There was no story to tell, no grander narrative, or point to any of it. It was a 2-season crutch limping to the finish line. And because I've explained myself, you all know that my argument is not against a quote-unquote kids show. My argument is against a season of Power Rangers that simply does not come close to stacking up to its peers, which is as ironic as it gets, given what Super Megaforce ended up being. Which is to say, there is a universe of difference between being written for kids and delivering a script that might as well have been written by kids. I want to be very clear with my next point. This video is by no means intended to criticize those who enjoy certain seasons of Rangers that I have issues with. I have been very adamant about wanting our fan base to be one of understanding and conversation, not mindless bickering. If you love Ninja Steel, then love Ninja Steel. Watch it again, scream "shows over, ninjas win" to your heart's content, and don't let anyone silence you. That's fine. In fact, that's awesome. But try to understand where people like me are coming from too. And in return, you should expect us to try and understand your points of view. And if we're not doing that, call us out on it. I don't care how long you've been watching Rangers. Toxic fans are bad fans, period. And if I'm ever creeping over to that side of things, call me out on it. This video is more targeted at those who disregard legitimate criticism because of what's being talked about, not how it's being talked about. It's an extremely problematic view because they're essentially telling professional writers who get paid to write to not pay any mind to real criticism, to sit comfortably and only allow the positive reactions to matter. Or worse, they're encouraging one of the most cancerous expressions I've ever heard. Don't think so much about it. As if there was anything to gain from turning your brain off. But here's the thing. I think it's fine if that's your take on things. If you're the kind of person who doesn't want to think more critically on matters like these because of the topic at hand, that's fine. I'll never agree with you, and you also might not enjoy my videos very much since, that's kind of what we do here, but that's your choice to make. However, I do ask that you be consistent. There should not be a different rubric for less positive reviews. If shows marketed towards kids can be great, and we know they can be, we should be able to talk them up, just as much as we would talk down shows that don't measure up, so long as the logic is uniform. For example, one of my points against Ninja Steel is pacing. Every resolution feels more rushed than the last. The parents' angle was one of my biggest critiques on that front, and I backed up that point by comparing it to the patient way Time Force handled that same dynamic. It's fair, it's consistent, it makes sense. It's not about why this show isn't being made my way. This isn't Burger King. It's about why this show isn't clearing the hurdles it's set up for itself. In closing, I'll say this. Power Rangers is a show marketed towards kids and teenagers primarily. That's never not been the case in all of its 25 years. But it's not just a kids show, because that would imply that just kids should be able to get anything out of it, or worse, that just kids should be able to speak on it. 25 years is a long time. Some Ranger fans have Little Ranger fans of their own now. Whether Saban likes it or not, there's more to think about now than just the younger audience. This franchise is a global entity with conventions, fanfare, a not as child-friendly movie, and viewers up and down the age spectrum. Power Rangers has proven their ability to cater to young and old concurrently. They're just struggling to do it now. But, more recently, Saban has been making a ton of changes. The logo changed, Hyperforce happened, they promoted Hasbro to Global Master of Toy Licensing, no really that's what they're called, and they plan to go backwards this time and adapt Go Busters in 2019. While I don't think my videos had anything to do with any of that, I do think the collective criticism against more recent seasons did help spark the need for a course correction, and maybe it'll mean great things for the coming years. We can only hope at this point, but I do have cautious optimism for Beast Morphers and the future of Rangers in general. Thoughtful criticism is a good thing. Without it, nothing would ever improve. And as fans, we should want the franchise to improve. But As I mentioned in the opening, the point of this video is to open the floor to all of you, in an effort to have constructive dialogues about the kids show tagline, and what it really means. And one point of conversation could be how the definition of kids show has changed over the years, and how it seems to favor a great deal more censorship now compared to previous times. But either way, I look forward to reading what you guys think about all of this, and then next week we'll get wild again. But until then, thanks for watching.